Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. We hope you enjoy today's story.
I am not inclined to make a mountain out of a molehill. In childhood, my history teacher described me as extremely taciturn. I didn't know what it meant, so later at home, I looked it up and found it meant restrained and uncommunicative. This largely remains true today. In fact, at work, I am known, or rather, was known as Laconic Lewis, because my name is Lewis Porter. I earned a degree in business administration, and my first job was at ALA, working with Arthur Long himself, who founded the company 30 years ago. Although I wasn't exactly what you would call his right-hand man, I was certainly in the upper tier of his management team. After 3 years there, I met Penny Lane, who worked in the marketing department. Yes, her father, Arnold Lane, was a Beatles fanatic and a bit of an idiot, at least in my opinion. We got along, fell in love, and got married. We bought a 3-bedroom apartment in a fairly decent part of our city, not far from our company offices. Although Penny wasn't exactly my first girlfriend, she was the first woman I truly felt comfortable with. Am I quiet and shy? Probably, looking back on my life. But with her, I felt open. We often talked late into the night, discussing having children and considering buying a detached 4-bedroom house in a promising part of the city. Obviously, I loved Penny, but as it turned out, Penny no longer loved me. I wonder, did she ever love me? But she didn't have the decency to tell me about it. How did I find out? I'll tell you. Arthur was always keen on the company attending exhibitions, starting from the early days when he pretended to be a visitor, wandering around the shows, meeting people, making business connections, and avoiding getting thrown out by security, to our current days when Arthur Long Associates often sponsored exhibitions. There were talks about a new exhibition in Cardiff, the capital of Wales, which he wanted to participate in, so he asked me to visit the site, talk to the organizers, and meet with the business development officer of the Welsh government. Actually, the last meeting was cancelled because the organizer was called to a meeting at the Welsh government office in Holyhead, which was at the other end of Wales, at the very top. As a result, I packed my bags, checked out of the hotel a day earlier, and was soon heading to our home in the English counties. I sent Penny a text message informing her of the change in my plans, but I didn't know if she had read it. As soon as I returned to our office, I had to go into the room where we stored our presentation materials and equipment to put away some things. While I was there, I discovered that my marriage had ended quite some time ago, but no one had bothered to inform me of this fact. The storage area was a large basement designed as a warehouse with various zones for storing different exhibition materials, from brochures to trade show stands, all organized in an alphanumeric system. As luck would have it, I was at the far end of the room, around the corner. 2 of my colleagues came in shortly after me. They started talking, and their words destroyed my marriage. Due to the cavernous nature of the room, the sound of their voices carried very well. Have you heard anything more about Penny Porter and that jerk Dave Rogers? No. What's new now? Turns out, Dave was supposed to go to Cardiff to check out the new trade show at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff, but he turned to Arthur and said, "Why not send Porter instead? That way, he'll be out of the way of what I have planned." No way, seriously? He was that brazen? The cheeky bastard. I don't know why Arthur puts up with that. And he must have known that Dave meant to get cozy with Penny Porter. It's all about nepotism, really. You see, Dave has something that poor Lewis Porter will never have. Dave's mom is Arthur's younger sister, so he gets away with all sorts of crap that no one else would. Yeah, that makes sense. Explains Dave's seemingly charmed life. I feel sorry for Lewis. The poor guy has done a tremendous amount of work for Arthur over the years, and instead of the board position he might have expected as a reward, Arthur sends him on a wild goose chase, allowing his bloody nephew to sleep with Lewis's wife. It's disgusting, isn't it? Don't get me started. I thought about anonymously warning Lewis, but it's not easy. I can't let it get back to Arthur, or I'll lose my job, and with the damn mortgage we took on and the expenses for our 2 kids, I just can't risk it. Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm in the same boat, really. Hand me that box, will you? The one over there. They've been at it for at least a few months, and Lewis hasn't noticed, or at least he hasn't done anything about it. Maybe he knows but either doesn't mind or, like everyone else here, is too scared to say anything. After all, There are rumors that Arthur is considering promoting Lewis to the board of directors, so rocking the boat right now wouldn't be a good move. No, I don't think Lewis stands a chance. Who knows about his wife's affair? Actually, almost everyone in the company. Anyone in the upper tier, certainly all the C-level management. Maybe some others too. Maybe. You know how rumors spread. Anyway, is it true that Penny is planning to divorce the poor guy and marry Dave? I heard that too, though I don't know if it's 100% true. They left the room, having done their work, and at the same time, destroyed my marriage. I didn't even recognize their voices. I finished putting things away and decided to leave the building. It turned out that everything I thought was wrong. The love of my life and my wife was neither the love of my life nor truly my wife. My boss, friend, and mentor was actually a vile piece of crap, and my career at ALA was not at all what I thought it was. In fact, it was all over. My colleagues, whom I thought I could trust, clearly weren't worth my spit, let alone my trust. Within a few minutes, I lost everything that was dear to me. My wife, my future children, my home, and my job. Both of my parents had died before I met Penny, and I was an only child, so losing Penny was a huge blow for me. She was like that song from many years ago. You are my everything, the sweetest song I could sing. But alas, not anymore. I wanted to tell someone, but who? Since I had returned a day early, I hadn't seen anyone who would recognize me, so I could leave work and try to figure out how to deal with this shitstorm. I booked a room at a local hotel and looked for a good divorce lawyer. Find a better one before this cheater does. Fortunately, I managed to get a video appointment almost immediately. There was only one local law firm that offered this service, so I went with them and spoke with one of their family and marital affairs specialists, Miss Jane Pleasant. I explained everything I knew to Miss Pleasant. She took notes, looked at me through the screen, and asked, "What do you want, Mr. Porter?" "I want to divorce her for adultery, but won't we need evidence? Hire a private investigator and all that?" In the old days, long before my father was born, the only way to prove adultery was to catch the guilty couple in the act with independent witnesses, photos, etc. Hiring a private investigator is an option, but they are restricted by laws governing data collection. Intercepting mail has always been illegal, and privacy laws have been strengthened to prohibit phone tapping, email hacking, and the like. We use a local detective, a former police officer. His name is Jeff Lithgow, and he runs a company called Detective Investigations. If you'd like, we can handle all of this for you. He won't do anything dubious or illegal, but if there is evidence to be found, Jeff will find it. It won't be cheap considering his fees and hours, but as someone once said, "What price can you put on peace of mind?" I agreed with her, but I still needed to know how much it would cost me. I will email you the cost of filing for divorce, but don't worry, we will handle that for you, which is over £600. Jeff's fees might be around £1,000, and our cost will start at £5,000 as our initial retainer, but I will keep you informed of any potential additional charges. However, we are a family law firm and strive to keep our rates reasonable. Do you think I need a detective? Well, she paused for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I would advise you to hire Jeff. We've worked with Jeff since he left the police force to start his own agency, and he is very, very good. Unless your wife suddenly feels a pang of guilt and says, "Yes, dear, I've been having sex with Tom, Dick, and Harry, and I agree to your divorce terms. In all other cases, you will need Jeff's skilled assistance." By the way, do you have any ideas about whom she is having an affair with? If so, how did you find out? I told her about the conversation I overheard. It felt good to have the opportunity to tell someone what I had learned. "This is good enough evidence to start with," she said. "However, you will need more proof if you want to file for divorce on the grounds of adultery, and Jeff, hopefully, will be able to gather the evidence you need. There are other aspects you will need to consider. You almost certainly won't want to continue working for your employer under these circumstances, so I would consider filing a constructive dismissal claim. We are a full-service law firm, so we can handle that side of things as well. I'll pass your details on to our employment law department. If I were you, I would start building your case right now. Contact your doctor and get a sick note for as long as possible for something like PTSD. I'll start preparing the divorce papers. If you decide to reconcile with your wife, we can easily withdraw the case. Is reconciliation a possibility? I thought for a few seconds before answering. No, not a chance. If what those guys said is true, she wants to divorce me and marry Dave Rogers, and I don't see any possibility of reconciliation. She nodded and said, "Yes, I can understand that. I'll also pass your details to Jeff so he can get started." After we finished our conversation, I called my private medical service and was able to schedule a video appointment almost immediately. They emailed me a sick note for 3 months, citing PTSD due to a hostile work environment and psychological issues. I also received a prescription for paroxetine for my PTSD. I sent the sick note to my employer's HR department. I decided to take the bull by the horns and call Penny. "Hello?" She answered the call. Did I detect suspicion in her voice? "How are you, Lewis? Are you planning to come back tomorrow?" "Actually, I'm already back in town." When I went to the office, I overheard a conversation between 2 colleagues. They were talking about you and Dave Rogers. Turns out, Rogers is Arthur's nephew. "Is it true that you have a relationship with Rogers?" She gasped and asked, "What did you hear?" "That you've been having a sexual relationship with him for many months, and that you plan to divorce me and marry him. Is that true?" She paused before responding. "I wish this hadn't happened, Lewis. I wanted to tell you myself, discreetly and with care. I still have feelings for you, but I love Dave more. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is." "Do you realize this whole situation is so messed up that I'll have to leave the company?" "Oh no." "Why?" "Because all my colleagues in management know. And apparently Dave talked his bloody Uncle Arthur into sending me to Cardiff instead of him, so he could spend his time having sex with you. Did you know about this?" "No, Lewis. I didn't know. And if that's true, well, I'll have to talk to Dave. Whatever is going on between him and me shouldn't involve you or humiliate you in this way. It was wrong. Everyone knows Rogers asked his uncle to get me out of the way so he could sleep with you. How many times has this happened? Was Cardiff just one instance, or has it happened other times?" I don't think so." It was obvious that it had, but Penny didn't want me to know just how much of a crap she was. "Are you coming home?" "No, I'm not coming home. I'm staying at a hotel right now, and soon I'll find something more permanent." I ended the call. What should I do? Get drunk? Why? What did my mind and body deserve to be punished for what that scum Penny did? I went to the hotel bar, had a rather decent burger, drank 3 pints of beer, and retired for the night. The next morning, I called a friend who owns several apartment buildings in our city. We arranged to meet for coffee, and he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He offered me a modest furnished 2-bedroom apartment and a job as the building manager. We signed the agreement, I got the keys, and I moved in that evening. After lunch, I headed to my former home. Fortunately, Penny was either at work or out with Dave, so I was able to get everything I needed from home: passport, papers, clothes, etc. I felt depressed but managed to cope by consulting with my private doctor. I had long written off ALA as a bad job. I must say, the investigator recommended by the lawyers was damn good. He got photos of those bastards together, and he obtained sworn statements from people who knew about the affair. Apparently, Dave Rogers had made quite a few enemies in the company who were more than willing to get back at him. In fact, I wondered if my 2 anonymous informants realized I was in the room and intentionally talked about the affair to give me a clue. I suppose I'll never know the truth, but I'll always be grateful to them. I decided to get tested for STDs, and fortunately, everything was clear. The divorce went through, and my constructive dismissal claim was processed through the UK's employment tribunal system. The employment tribunal system is far less complex than the standard UK courts. They tend to be more flexible. For instance, the employment judge, although a judge, never wears wigs or robes. My law firm introduced me to one of their employment law experts. She wasn't a solicitor. She was an executive lawyer named Caris Morgan. She was Welsh, as her name suggested. In fact, she looked like a young Ruth Maddock from when she played Gladys Pugh in High to High. She smiled and said, "I know what you're thinking." And though we're not close relatives, Ruth Maddock is a relation of mine. She reassured me and prepared me for what would happen in the tribunal. What she couldn't prepare me for was how Arthur's representative would make a complete fool of himself. He entered the room dressed in full barrister's robes and a wig. I swear, as he walked in, there was a faint smell of mothballs about him. The employment judge, Mary Patricks, was not amused. "I assume you represent Arthur Long Associates?" He bowed and said, "Yes, Your Honor." I am not, Your Honor. This is a tribunal, not a court. Wigs and robes are not customary attire here. Please remove your wig." "As you wish." He removed his wig. Karis whispered to me, "Oh, he didn't like that. He's clearly irritated because he thought he could use his barrister status to intimidate us mere mortals. I won't bore you with the details. I am taciturn, remember?" But the case went very poorly for Arthur Long's partners. Mary Patricks agreed that if the company owner not only knew about his nephew's affair with a colleague, but actively facilitated it by arranging for the husband to be sent away so the nephew could meet with the married woman, it meant that the employee-employer relationship was irreparably damaged and constituted constructive dismissal. The payout I received was £80,000. Additionally, I got severance pay, holiday pay, etc. The industry we worked in was small but profitable, and soon rumors about what happened began to spread. It wasn't me. Honestly, remember, I'm taciturn, right? In the end, despite his sister's protests, Arthur fired his nephew. It was generally considered too little, too late. He lost several senior employees because they realized that if he would conspire with his nephew to allow him to sleep with a member of the executive team, they couldn't rely on him. The divorce proceeded fairly quickly. The evidence from Jeff's company and the evidence used in the constructive dismissal case were also presented in the divorce proceedings. It was a standard 50-50 split. I felt irritated that Penny essentially benefited from being an unfaithful wife, but I was free from that cheating woman, so in that sense, it was worth it. I set up a home-based consulting company and took on several of Arthur's clients, which was good. After the tribunal settlement money was transferred to my bank account, I decided to muster up the courage, called Karis, and asked her to meet for a drink. To my delight, she agreed. She looked stunning and surprised me, in a good way, by ordering a pint of beer from South Wales. I had my usual pint of beer, but no more. Yes, I'm taciturn, but not foolish. We chatted while we drank, and it turned out she was born in a small town in mid-Wales, which was actually very close to where my grandparents farmed. She took my hand, looked into my eyes, and said, "See, I knew there was something special about you. You're a Welshman in disguise." We both laughed at her joke. I was falling in love with her, and not just because she resembled Ruth Maddock. We dated over the next few weeks. Movies, drinks, restaurants. I invited her to my place for dinner, which I cooked. Over the meal, with a glass of wine from a Welsh vineyard, I took her hand and told her how my feelings for her were growing. She squeezed my hand, smiled, and said, breathlessly, "What do you think we should do about that?" She glanced at my bedroom door. Well, that certainly happened faster than I had dared to hope. I nodded, smiled, and moved forward. Yes, we made love. As cliched as it sounds, I felt a deeper, more loving connection with Karis than I had ever felt with Penny during our courtship or marriage. In a moment of self-realization, I understood that it was because Penny was never as in love with me as I was with her. Otherwise, she could never have moved on from me to Dave Rogers. The courtship between Karis and me was slow, warm, and loving. I found love at last with a Welsh firecracker. Did we bond because we were both Welsh? Yes, as silly as it sounds, I think there's some truth to that. After a year of dating, we got married and started thinking about having children. Karis is teaching me Welsh, which is a long but fascinating process. We moved to Mid-Wales. She partnered with a law firm in Machynlleth, and I continue consulting from our 4-bedroom home near the town center. Oh, those conversations about having children? They've turned into discussions about what color to paint the nursery. It's been 2 months now, and we couldn't be happier. Did Penny and Dave get married? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. Taciturn, that's me. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments. And we'll see you on the Cheating Secrets channel.